Hello filmmakers, welcome to Path to Hollywood. My name is Tony, I'm film director, and today we talk about fantastic topic, acting. Today our guest Allen Williamson. Allen, can you share with us your experience about auditioning? What's changed?
As far as how auditions have changed, I noticed when I was first starting, a lot of the auditions, of course, were in person, and there would be people. So I guess if my type was going in for a particular role, I'd be waiting in a lobby with maybe 20 to 40 other guys, and everybody has their papers, their lines, and they just go one at a time. And a person on deck would sit in a chair in front of the door, and the next guy would come out, and the next guy would go in. And then, of course, when the pandemic hit, everything became more self-tape. And I think everybody, the casting directors seem to prefer the self-tape so they can get things moving a lot quicker, get the auditions in and out. Callbacks seem to be moving closer towards in-person again, which is fun. I enjoy the in-person experience because they can see your process happen. Self-tapes are a lot more, you can tape it again and again and again. And I don't like to do too many takes because when you're on set, you don't have that opportunity to do 50 takes like a self-tape. So when I do a self-tape, I still treat it as maybe 1, 2, 3 takes at the most, and then I don't do any more because that's not how it would be in the real situation. I don't like the Zoom callbacks. I like self-tapes because you can do what you want. I like the in-person because they see you, but the Zoom, there's so much to be mistaken. The lag time could delay your reactions, so they are seeing, they're not seeing your true response because things are moving a little bit slower with the connections. So I do like self-tapes. It's convenient, and I do like the in-persons. Self-tapes make it nice because when you're on set or when you've had a long day, a lot of times you can't actually get to the room for an in-person. So this allows you still the opportunity to send in the tape so they can still see you perform. My preparation for auditioning, I enjoy when anyone starts to audition, they usually get the jitters. I get the jitters. Everyone gets nervous, you feel all the angst of preparing. And then you hit that record button and you feel it has to be perfect. And I think the more auditions that we do and just keep doing them, even if you don't fit the part, to just do it anyways, or to record as if you were going to do an audition, it starts to become second nature, and then you feel natural just doing it. I think that's a big problem for a lot of first-time actors, is they're not used to the camera being ready to record them. Heath Ledger has that documentary where he had a video camera record his entire life. Everything he was doing, he just had a camera filming him making food, filming him going to bed, filming him playing video games, and he got so comfortable with the camera being on him that when it comes to auditions or actual filming, he forgot it was there. He just, lived his life in front of the camera. And I think that helps with auditions. When you do it enough, the auditions, you just don't care about that anymore. The anxiety and the nerves of making sure your performance is perfect is gone. That's another thing for me. I think worrying about perfection, we always worry about perfection. If we can just get that out of our heads, it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be real. That's been my best thing. Usually they just want to see what you bring to this character. So a lot of people try to put on and make a new presence. And casting directors and directors are usually looking for you to just deliver these lines as you would naturally approach it with the characteristics of, if it's a bad guy, if it's a killer, if it's the good guy, the leading man or something, but they want to see how you bring it. So I would say there's not so much specifications there. If you want to talk about technical audition setup, usually they like to see maybe just above the elbow to just maybe an inch above the head as far as framing goes. A lot of people will do the audition, and I notice that there's so much space above their head that they're in this tiny little spot. And casting directors, I've heard them even say, and directors say, they won't look at it if it looks like that. They're too tiny. Or some people will set the camera down so you're looking up at them like this. It doesn't work, just square on is perfect, and that's what they want to see. Lighting, of course, is key. A lot of people will have dim lit, hard shadows and make it difficult to see their face. And then sound, of course. I know it's hard for a lot of people. It was hard for me to get lighting right, because we're not all trained in lighting. Yeah, but I guess the easiest thing to do is just to make sure, what I always make sure is at least there's no hard shadows. Is the shadow hitting my nose, making a dark shadow here, or is it coming down to my eyes are too dark, or is it too bright that you can't see my face because it's so white? As long as it comes in natural, I feel like the rest of it, will figure itself out. A lot of actors, I believe, come to Hollywood because it's been around for, over 100 years. This is the sort of mecca for filmmaking, of course. There's bigger hubs around the country, just like LA. Atlanta is one, New York, of course, New Orleans, Chicago. But Los Angeles has been so firmly rooted that I don't think it will ever go away. The roots run deep, that LA will always be making film and television. What skills do actors need to be here? It takes talent, of course, but I feel like this kind of talent can be learned if somebody has passion and endurance. They have to have commitment. I think commitment is the biggest thing to me. You'll see great talent. I've seen it myself. Great performers not do it anymore and they quit because their heart's not in it or their mind's not in it, or they let something bother them and they quit. And then I've seen really bad performers do phenomenal. I mean, we've all seen it. The reason they do phenomenal is because they don't give up. I think not giving up is very difficult, but if someone chooses not to give up, they will find success. And I guess that goes for everything. It's that choice of not to give up. And I feel like some people give up because they realize it wasn't meant for them and they find a new passion. And with that new passion, they find that drive of sheer commitment and it goes into that direction. For example, me, I was doing a different line of work. I wasn't focused on acting. And then I gave up in that field. And when I found acting, I found the drive came with it to never want to give up. There's no desire to want to give up. I will always do this. And I feel like that is the number one ingredient for performers, for the industry to succeed, is I will always do this no matter what feeling. When you have a mentor or an instructor or a director give you the type of advice that maybe this isn't the line of work for you, I think it's different for every individual, because there are some people, when they hear that, they need to pursue and they need to keep going because they will be successful, and they've just fallen into the wrong advice from somebody who doesn't believe in them. But you see the success stories where those people still achieve and they still rise up and do amazing things. But on the flip side, there are people who, when they are told that it's true, maybe they don't have that talent. And you see these people struggle for years, and we all know some on both ends. But you see the people who they haven't really landed anything or struck even a remote hint of success in the field that they're pursuing, but yet they just trudge through year after year after year without realizing that they have a better passion somewhere else. And it's definitely a double-edged sword, because I think in that moment you can't necessarily know who you are, whether or not you are the one that should find a different path. And I think one good assistant tool, one good assistance for that is the fact that if you have multiple people telling you perhaps this isn't for you, and if you can ask them, be real with me, how do you think I'm doing? Give me your honest feedback. You have to be prepared. I think, I'm just speaking from just experience, I think one would have to be prepared to hear it and deal with the pain of hearing from multiple sources, multiple opinions, that if it's not right for them, ask your friends, ask your coworkers, ask people you are in class with, ask another instructor that you start talking to, ask a previous director, give me your honest feedback. How do you think I'm doing? Listen to all of them, and I think in the multitude of counsel, there will be the true wisdom to find. So if a mentor or someone in a higher ranking position like a director or an acting instructor tells you that your performance is bad or that you shouldn't waste your time in this business, I think it still falls into the individual to make that decision. Am I going to listen to them and take this advice and move into another line of work? Or am I going to use this as fuel to pursue harder and do better? Both of those options, I believe, are good. It really depends on what is happening in your life at the moment. Okay, in the movie industry, I think it was a small incremental climb to get to being a full-time actor. I started originally in school doing a little bit of theater productions, and during the summer I wanted to do more theater. A friend of mine was doing film, and she recommended me to take a film class with her. So I took the film class, and at that film class they recommended an agent to everybody in the class. A small boutique agent, I went to her house to meet with her, and she had a baby in one arm and papers all over her kitchen table. So that was my first agent. And then she recommended me to take another class. I took that class, and that class recommended me to get with another agent for a broader spectrum, bigger geographical location. And eventually, just going through the process, I slowly developed more and more connections. And I think networking was the biggest thing. So I think my first film or on-camera project was a commercial for safety, seatbelts, buckle up, click it or ticket. I think that was my first thing. And then from there, they just continue to cycle through and create a consistent flow. I have too many favorite projects, to be honest. I did some stuff, I believe there was one called Teen Spirit that they treated you like royalty. They asked you what you wanted for food. They didn't tell you what food was going to be. Literally, I could tell them anything, They gave me my own trailer. A couple productions do that, where they give you your own trailer with like television and couch and bed and stuff. It was fun. I got to portray the life of an author who's still alive today, and I had to meet with him multiple times to understand his story from his eyes, understand his life, and embody him from age 15 to 30. They literally had me play him from 15 to 30. So that was really poignant, very interesting to go through his ups and downs, because he was abused at a young age, and he was in a very serious car accident, hit by a train, and he had to recover completely from that. And going through his whole life, going to the people who abused him as an adult, he approached each one of them to confront what had happened in the past. So portraying those scenes with him there, watching him almost relive it, was very intense, and I felt very honored to be a part of his story that he could tell, and he got it out, and he takes it to churches and conventions to speak his truth about growing up in abuse. I think it is necessary to work with an agent, mainly because as actors we do have all of the opportunities at our fingertips. We can do it ourselves. We can submit ourselves for projects, but that takes so much time, where we can focus our productivity and energy in other directions of working on our craft, of actually being on set and performing, of making ends meet to pay bills. So having an agent, I think, is very necessary, because they can submit for you, they can negotiate offers and opportunities for you, and they can basically help navigate you through the messy tide of the whole industry. Agents, I think, are actually easy to get. There's a dime a dozen. It just takes the effort of going out and finding the right agent for a person. So when looking for agents, there's little tips and tricks to live by. You can always tell a good agent versus a bad agent or a fake agent by looking at their IMDb profile. That's probably one of the safest things to do. If you go to the IMDb Pro and you type in the agency name, click at their clients and see if they have a list of clients, how long the list is, and the star meters of their clients. You can see if they're representing good people, if they're representing people that are getting solid work, versus if, all of their talent are in the, hundred thousands and nobody seems to be landing a lot of work, then maybe bypass that one and continue looking for a better agent. Secondly is seeing what type of people that they represent. Do they represent your specific type? Are they looking for that specific type? Are they known for representing that specific type? Are they looking to have one of every type? And are they missing you, and so that you can fill that gap? So those are two good, safe options to go with. But if they were only representing a specific type that you do not fit, maybe look for another one. Or if they represent a bunch of types and they already have your type filled out with like 3 people that match you, then maybe continue looking. So that's one way. Agents usually charge anywhere between 10 to 15% based on the project. A lot of projects will specify in their breakdown how much is going to the agency. So they could say plus a 10% agency fee or plus a 20% agency fee. If they don't do that, your agent still may take a regular, 15% cut. It's good to lay those terms down when you begin your representation. So if you're with a current agent that you're not happy with or satisfied with what's happening and you want to go to a new agency, the first thing to do is to check your exclusivity. Did they have an exclusive contract with you? Meaning, are you locked in with them? Secondly, just read all the fine print. Was there a 3-month trial? Is there a year term where you have to stay with them for a year, then you can leave? Is there some sort of clause where you have to give them a notification that you're looking? So always going back to the contract for fine print. If there is no contract at all, then it's pretty much free game. You call them, you let them know. It's always good to be respectable. Let them know, hey, I've decided to move with this agency. There are agencies out there that are reputable that do say, if you are looking and if they reach out to you, they say, talk to us. And I think sometimes you can talk in confidence. I haven't done this myself, but you can talk in confidence with that agency and say, I'm thinking about leaving my current agent. Tell me how you operate. I would like to know your specifics. And then if you decide that that's who you want to go with and you have the freedom to let your agency know, I'd like to leave, it's best to be respectable and polite on all levels. And I think that's a good way to operate through the industry. So we're talking about cancel culture.
Yes.
Yeah. What I've noticed is it seems to be more so for the big celebrities, the people who are currently on the radar. It seems like there's always going to be somebody who's out to get you, who's going to try to find something to make you stumble because they're unsatisfied with their own life, or they find something that somebody has done in the past that offended them. I think the best way to operate is to avoid public displays of your opinion. In a way, if you're going to be in this industry, a lot of people like to give their opinion out there, and that's fine. Let them give their opinion. But if you decide you want to be in an industry where you're putting yourself out there to be a blank canvas for other people's productions, you begin to represent them and their stories that they are telling. So with that, you have to have a bit of personal responsibility on your own social media profiles, not to get involved in controversial situations, political situations, anything that could be perceived as controversial. I try to just stay away from, because I know that I want to be used by multiple productions in ways that get their stories pushed forward. So I just try to stay away from that because you never know, in the future something could always come back to haunt you. There are multiple avenues that people can take. One I know of, I have a lot of friends that do this, is starting as an extra on sets. Lots of big budget movies will open up casting calls, cattle calls as they're called sometimes, for extras because they've got to fill a dance floor or a stadium or a parking lot or a neighborhood, and they just need people in there. And it's easy to get online, find those, grab your friends, and go and be an extra in those. Brad Pitt is one who started doing that. There's video of him talking about how he was an extra for many things. Another thing is finding the agent that works for you and putting in the time and effort to learn your craft and to train and to start in maybe independent features, you know, smaller films where you can really develop some meaty roles and make a demo reel out of that and start pitching your demo reel to bigger companies, to bigger agencies, or having your agent pitch you to bigger productions and start working your way up that way. A third way is networking. Just networking is key. Being friendly, being respectable, being somebody that everybody knows, the connections start coming in fast, and you start finding yourself through friends and acquaintances being placed into positions that work great, or doing all three or two of any of those three. Those are the three main ways that I believe, that I know of, and they seem to work well to at least develop consistency. I would say not to worry about it. I didn't worry about it, and the projects just came. My focus was on making sure that I was always professional, and with that professionality, the projects came to where I ended up becoming a member of the union. I became SAG eligible, then I became must join, and then they called me and said I had to join to continue on. The Actors Union is the Screen Actors Guild, SAG. It's also called SAG-AFTRA because they merged with AFTRA, which is, I think, American Film Television something. But they merged a while back, so it's called SAG-AFTRA. To get into the union, like I said, you have to do union productions, but the union productions will come. I never tried to get into the union. The process of doing many films eventually opens up that door, and they tell you that you have to join. And in order to join, you have to fill out the paperwork, and you have to pay a certain fee. It's different depending on which locality you're being represented out of. For instance, let me say that again. It's different depending on which locality you're represented out of. For instance, I was on the East Coast, and after I paid that initiation fee, I had started booking projects in Los Angeles, and they contacted me again and said I had to pay an additional because Los Angeles requires a bigger union due to begin. Oh, is being in the union necessary? I don't believe it is, especially right now. There's a lot more productions going non-union, so it's actually more productive to stay non-union. And if you are union, they hate the fact that people go financial core. But FICOR is basically a way of hanging up your union status to be able to do non-union productions. That's based to the actor's discretion. But to be able to do non-union productions right now is almost key because there is a lot of opportunity to do non-union productions.
Right.
Yeah, if you are union, there can be opportunities to do non-union work. I personally haven't come across, let me say that again. If you are union, there are ways to do non-union work. Production will have to work alongside with you to get those union waivers, or they will have to contact the SAG-AFTRA office to be able to allow you into the project, and might take a little bit of extra paperwork, but it is definitely doable. How I personally approach an acting role, whether it's an audition or a booking, when I have the script and I see the character development and read the synopsis and know what the specs for my character are, then memorization is first. After I start to get the lines memorized, I can then begin to hash out the personality, the emotions, the mood, the character, the vibe of that specific role. And yes, I do use a lot of experience. I believe experience is key. If somebody doesn't have much experience, it's hard for them to draw out of things. So I do believe living a life, traveling, meeting new people, trying new jobs, exploring new places, doing something different every day, learning an instrument, learning a language, learning a computer skill or a video game, all make for new experiences. All make for new experiences to develop a well-rounded character, and with that, you can bring it in. For instance, I was playing the role of a military vet with PTSD last month, and for the last 2 months, and while naturally, I wouldn't have had much to draw on, but the fact that I did contracting in Afghanistan, which is where he operated from, I was able to pull a lot of that experience into it. And it even started giving me a little bit of flashbacks of my own time while I was there, which I think actually did help, and they could see that shine through. I love to get rehearsals in before shooting, if possible. There's a lot of productions where they don't give you the time. They literally hire you fast, and you begin filming almost 2 days later without knowing who your castmates are going to be. That happened to me recently, and what I did with my co-star was, as we were going through wardrobe and makeup, I asked her if she'd be willing to run lines before we started. And we just developed a very fast friendship. We both were on the same page and knew that we had to become friends very fast. And I think that really helps, because I've been on sets where people are so focused in their own world that you don't feel the connection from them, and it shows on camera, and there's no camaraderie, there's no chemistry, and it really hinders the project. But when two actors come together and they know that they have to become friends very fast, to make these connections in the scene work, it's beautiful. You can relate, you can bond, you can start running lines, and then everything just becomes like perfect. Originally, maybe the first 1 or 2 times it's bumpy, it's awkward, because it's a part of life that's more intimate, so most people get uncomfortable when starting that. I believe the more you can do it, the more you can separate yourself from that, and it becomes, again, just the process of performance. And so when I'm doing a kissing scene or something, just like the rest of the scenes, I'm focused on making sure that this character looks believable, that I'm angled the right way towards camera, that the lighting is right, that I'm not being sloppy, that I'm still in performance mode. So there's no room really for emotions or excitement or pheromones or anything to kick in, because you're focused on your performance. So if you have a partner that is aware of that situation, I believe it's easier to handle that together, because they know that you're in performance mode. When things are called cut, that's when that scene is over. That tends to be the easiest way to, I guess, explain that. I had to do an episode, a show, where I ended up having to kiss 6 different co-stars, and each one was a little different. And I remember waking up on a couch while I was waiting, and one girl was looking at me and was like, "Hi." I was like, "Hi." She's like, "We have to kiss." And I was like, "Okay." And I went back to sleep, because I realized it was her first time and she was very nervous, and I didn't think about that, But for me, it was just like any other scene, You walk by, you pick up the glass. You walk by, you kiss. You're in bed and you're delivering lines. I've never done super physically intimate in bed scenes yet, so I guess we'll approach that bridge when we get there. And it gets weird, especially when you're wearing next to nothing. You have to just separate and realize that you are the performer, you are the work of art that has to be needed, and that nobody's judging how you look. They're focused on the piece too, because everyone's on the same team. They want this project to look good. So nobody's thinking about how you look. Everybody's thinking about making sure this project comes together to be the masterpiece it's supposed to be. I've studied as many places as I possibly can. I attended the master's program in England at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School, and that's where I learned a bulk of my craft. But I've also studied, here in Los Angeles, in Atlanta, in New York, both long-term classes and short intensive seminars. Anywhere that has a reputable instructor, I like to glean from them what they offer. On set is a big place to learn because an acting teacher can teach you so many things, but then once you get on set, the director throws everything away and he wants it like this, so you have to do what this particular director was. Even though your acting instructor, she gave you beautiful stuff to work with, but now the director here and the next director, whatever she wants or whatever he wants that's coming next, you have to be malleable and fit what they are trying to achieve and the acting style that they want. So whenever I see bad acting on television, I can't always blame the actor, because sometimes the director is telling them that they want it just like this. They want them to say it like this or to do it like that. So training is fantastic, but you do have to throw it away once they call action. So I try to get as much training from as many different schools of thought as I possibly can. My first choice would be to be on set. I had a friend ask me which class he should attend, and he was talking about the prices of the classes. And I told him, honestly, my current position and opinion is that he should save the money from going to class and use that money to travel and put himself up in a hotel to do smaller projects that couldn't pay for his travel. So he could go be on different sets where you would learn technical terms that you normally wouldn't hear in the classroom, where you're in the trenches realizing this is how it is waking up. This is what it means to be professional. This is what it means to make sure you learn your lines on time. This is to know how the lighting and the camera is going to be operating, how to work with everybody on the crew. Because there's a lot of actors who get on set and they can't relate to the crew because they feel that they have this stigma where they have to be the star. And it's better that you realize everybody is a human too. We're all building this project together. So the person who's getting water for everybody is just as important as the actor, as the director. Everybody is necessary for the project. So learning on set, I believe, is so much more full than taking classes. There's a lot of great acting schools, and if you look at award-winning actors, they all come from different schools. So I don't believe there's any one particular school that's better than the other. I think what it is they teach you the ability to learn on those sets. So there's many schools, and I love going to acting classes when I have the opportunity and the time. Any acting school, I believe, with diversification. I feel like if someone just focuses on one school of thought, they soon become locked into only that method or that style or that way of thinking. So I think if someone is going to do training, to sure, go ahead, get your degree, get your graduate's degree or anything, and then try other schools as well so that you can develop more rounded ways of thinking. I believe there's many projects that will show up that continue to require huge transformations. Christian Bale is a great one to watch for that, how he can physically change his body and his mental state with that. It's phenomenal stuff, and I believe lots of projects are going to require that. So I wouldn't say there's any one huge transformation I've had. I've had many mid-level transformations where I've had to change a little bit of the physique, change a little bit of personality type for those roles, and each one is unique, each one is different. As I mentioned 2 months ago, that one was a big change. Right before that, we were doing one in Kentucky where I had to be Scottish, and we had to be living as if we were barely surviving in the 1700s. My men were eating their leather belts. We were losing men. They were dying of starvation, and we had to build our own raft. We had to light fires with flint rocks, and all this we had to do while we were there. They literally film us lighting the fires, building the raft, putting together, and we're in ice cold water diving into the river in November, early November, at 5, 6 a.m. in the morning while the lake was almost felt like it was frozen, like a couple degrees colder, it could have been ice. And we're wearing wetsuits under our wardrobe, but they cut the wetsuits to hide our, so that, because our shirts were open. So we're jumping in this cold water with open shirts and the water coming in very rapidly. It was very miserable, but again, just thinking of, you know, where you are, I believe mental transformation there takes a lot of resolve and constitution for that. So the one 2 months ago with the PTSD war vet is going to be called Scars. And the one before that, the 1700s, is Into the Wild Frontier 1700s. Okay, so yes, they call that ADR. ADR, yes. And sometimes we will have to go into the studio and you watch your scene play out and you'll hear the beep, 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 and then you begin delivering your lines, and you have to do it again and again until it matches your mouth. And then when you see it on the film come out, it looks like that's what you were saying at the time, if it's a good studio, which usually most studios have gotten really good at that. Yeah, I think for me, to be honest, I've only had to do maybe a max of 5% of a movie, of my scenes, maybe 10% at the most. Usually it's not many, it's just like probably 10 to 20 wild lines that got missed or that sound got in the way of. For me, I think the hardest part on the set is making sure I stay consistent with what I'm already doing in regards to diet and sleep, because the productions will change schedules and it'll disrupt my sleeping pattern. And I definitely need a good circadian rhythm, and productions are so anti that. We will film early in the morning, we'll film late at night, we'll film midday, we'll film midnight. And you never know what they're gonna need, and that disrupts my sleep schedule. And then food, craft services always has chips and cookies and things, and I want to eat a healthy, balanced diet, but the food is right there in front of your face, candy all the time. And so maintaining my health, I think, is my biggest, literally my biggest thing to focus on. Everything else is usually good, but just scheduling and food is the most difficult. Yes, absolutely. I filmed with many actors whose English wasn't good, and I do believe it's easy for anybody who wants to succeed. Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. When he started, I believe he did Hercules in New York, and his accent was so bad that they redubbed everything with a different person. So it's him, but it's a different voice, and he was still the lead in a film while they replaced his entire voice. But when he got into Conan the Barbarian and Terminator and those films, they realized his accent was beautiful because they hadn't heard that before. So his accent became unique, just like many of the action stars and many of other stars after to follow. Their accents become a trademark that people love to hear. So I believe if the actor, if his or her English isn't that strong, still, as long as they focus on character development, on presence, on everything else, and their voice comes across, it becomes welcomed and people want to hear that, and it becomes the new it thing that everybody loves to see on the big screen. The commercial I did this past summer or fall, I believe, I had to be hiding in the wallpaper. So I think that's the most unusual, because they had to match me with the wallpaper to blend in. So they had to paint me completely blackish blue, and then they had to overlay another, and then they had to slowly paint the design of the wallpaper behind me till I could close my eyes and almost disappear. So that was fun. It took a lot though. So there's two things I usually go to if I can't understand the director's information or instructions. Number one, I'll just ask again. I'll repeat to them what I think they're saying, and I ask them, I said, I'm not quite sure. Can you tell me this is what I think you're intending? And if they say yes, that's exactly it, then good. If they say no, then they know that they have to try to explain it differently, and they try to explain it differently. Number two, if the director is already busy and can't do that, I go with what I think they're looking for. And they're going to say yes or no. It's okay to fail. If I do it and it's not what the director wanted, they'll see it, come up to me and say, Alan, I wanted to see more like this. And then I'll say, oh, okay. And then I'll ask other questions if I needed a question. I'll say, by the way, did you mean this? And then they'll say no or yes, like this. So if there's a director screaming or insulting cast members or crew, the first thing is to realize it's very unprofessional of them to do that. Directors, just like actors, are hired by productions usually, and so they're on the same level. They're right there, so they shouldn't be insulting or yelling at anyone or throwing a fit. That's a very unprofessional attitude, and they probably won't go far. On the flip side, if it's a big production and they're yelling and insulting and they're famous or something, that means they're used to everything being their way. Either way, I tell myself, this is only temporary. Tomorrow or next week or next month, I'm never going to see them again. And if they want me back, that's up to me to decide if I want to work with them again and have the opportunity to tell them I didn't appreciate that. That was very unprofessional. But word gets around and everybody probably knows that about that particular director. The great thing is we move on, we put it behind us, and we keep going. I don't think it's unprofessional to say something to a director, especially now, to speak up. And if someone is being insulted, if you're personally being insulted or someone else is being insulted in front of you, to say something. I actually had to do that this past year to a DP that was insulting someone else and then asked me to forcefully move the other cast member because the cast member didn't understand. And instead of doing that, I stopped and looked at the DP and said, that's not how we talk to people here. And he stopped and he said, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. And he realized, and we continued moving forward and everybody was happy. Wow, there's a lot of outstanding actors. I'm impressed by so many people, individuals. One that I use as a type of role model, a lot of my friends, my close friends and I, we use this actor together as something to strive for, is Tom Cruise. Because he puts so much effort and energy and focus, determination into his roles where he'll go to the extreme physically and mentally. He studies his scripts. When they were doing Top Gun, Val Kilmer mentioned that all the guys would go celebrate after filming to a local bar, and they invited Tom, and he said, no, I have to go home and study. So he would forgo partying to continue studying for the next scenes. And that has helped me to be able to focus and concentrate and say, no, I have to study. I have to stay physically fit. I have to stay mentally sharp in everything I can do so that I can be the best that I can be in each successive project. So I've had the good fortune to be placed into many different types of roles, whether good guy or bad guy, leading man or villain, all of them. I started by being placed more into villains and have slowly moved into leading man currently. But I'm happy and content to do all of them. They're each enjoyable in their own unique ways. One of my dream roles is period pieces. I do like to do period pieces, probably more of the, I would say, Victorian era, maybe in England or something. I like doing those. I've had lots of opportunity to do different accents and different period pieces. As I mentioned, 1700s, 1600s, 1800s. I've got to do them all, but I do enjoy doing probably the 1800s England, I suppose. I don't think it matters too much. It's just a commercial. Lots of big-time actors do commercials on the other side of the globe and stuff. There's a lot of good money in commercial work. There is a stark difference with cinematic features. You have to be more toned down usually and more intimate, and you drop your voice and everything is just very cinematic-like, And then with commercials, everything's got to be big and loud, So it is fun, the difference of change that you have to do with each one. Because this thing, with cinematic, with features, you can take your time and you can drag things out and you can ponder for a minute as you go to think about what you're talking about. And commercials, everything's got to be done in 30 seconds. So you've got to say all your words and it's got to stop right at 30 seconds. And if you go 31 seconds, it's too long. So it's fun to try to get all those words in on 30 seconds or less. Well, to be honest, I should read actor books, but I don't. But I do love watching movies like crazy. I try to go to the movies as often as possible. I try to watch everything that's out. And I can't so much enjoy the movie as I'm mentally critiquing everything that's happening. But I've come to peaceful terms with myself that that's going to happen when I watch the movie. I'm just going to be analyzing it in a good way. I enjoy every movie, but I am analyzing the actor's performance, each actor, how they're performing. And I'm learning the whole time, watching how they do it, how the director is doing things, how the DP is moving the camera, how the lighting is set up, and how the actor is living in that world that has just been created around them. And I think that's a big key of a lot of learning, for fun. Master classes.
Does it help?
It is helpful. I've watched a few master classes. They, I don't want to drop any names, I guess, but
without name, just
yeah.
Explain how it works.
I do enjoy the master classes. They'll break them up into chapters, and you can watch different segments, and some you may be aware of, and then some things will give new insight that you just never thought of before because it's coming from an actor or a director that you're fond of and you love seeing their work and they already have a reputation in your head. Absolutely. As you look, a lot of renowned actors came from schools, both prestigious schools and non-prestigious schools. So graduating a class does give you good opportunity. I believe anybody can. It just takes that extra effort afterwards to keep applying yourself. I've seen people graduate and they don't do anything with their degree. Taking that time after you graduate to really continue to pursue your craft, because it still isn't going to be handed to you on a silver plate. Some schools do. I'm aware of some schools that do take their students and give them, a national tour, and then they send them to other countries to tour, and everything is paid for to make sure that they get plugged in well. But for the bulk of us, it really takes effort and, sheer determination. So what's my goal? What's my long-term goal as far as my acting career, and what keeps me going?
Oscar.
No. My long-term goal for acting, naturally, like anybody who's an actor, if you ask them, do you want to win an Oscar or do you want to be famous? They'd be far and few in between to say no. Everybody wants to win an Oscar. Everybody wants to be a celebrity. Everybody wants to be famous if they're an actor and they're being truthful. That being said, it's not the only reason for being. In fact, I wouldn't say it's the big reason. The main reason for doing what I'm doing is because I wouldn't be happy not doing it. I love the performance. I love going into a project. I love working with new people all the time. I have worked in 9-to-5 desk jobs, doing financial stuff. I have worked in the government sector, and the people are always the same people every day. You're doing the same work every day, and that works for a specific mentality, a specific type of people who can handle routine. And some people are really good at maintaining that consistent routine. Me, I'm more on that creative side where I need variety. I need the change. I need the travel. Some people would get homesick traveling. I travel and I thrive on being in a new location, being in a new environment, working with new faces, and becoming a new character. I don't like to dress up for Halloween because I feel like I do Halloween the whole year, always in costumes, always being something different. So it's always a new atmosphere. So I will always be acting. That's part of why I don't give up. I will always be acting because it has become consistent. I've been able to be a full-time actor for 6 years now, doing no other job, just acting, because it's reached a stability, and I've garnered enough reputation that I have consistency and I have professionalism on every set, and now everybody is starting to be familiar with my work, with my positive personality on set, and I start to see the same people in different locations and environments, and we enjoy creating something new every time. So I believe I'll always be doing this, as because I found the groove. I personally don't try to give advice to anybody. I know that some people do. My personal take on that is that I do choose to only focus on myself. If somebody is extremely out of line and nobody is stopping them, I will speak up on behalf of. I have done that a couple times, but only in rare extreme situations. I think doing enough projects, you will come across something where something insane is happening. I had a director that never called cut, and the camera was being blocked and you couldn't see anything on the camera, and the DP didn't know what to do, and everybody is waiting and they're still rolling camera and he's just not paying attention. So I called cut, which is a faux pas. I never would call cut on any set, but I did for that one because we were wasting footage. The DP thanked me. He was like, "Thank you." And I walked over to the director and I said, "Hey, we weren't on camera right there because this thing was blocked. Did you see it?" And he was like he was just in another world. So rarely will I ever speak up, but usually I try to stay in my lane. And I feel like if I focus on myself, whether the environment around me succeeds or fails, I will succeed regardless. And my friends also, we will succeed. And if this project goes bad, there will be another project soon with good people, and you find your groove, and you find the people that work with you, and you continue to make great things. Okay, if I didn't have an agent right now, I actually wouldn't worry about an agent. First thing is getting online. We have the internet, which has been a huge game changer. It's been so great. There's many online websites, Actors Access, Backstage, LA Casting, Casting Networks, Casting Frontier. All of these provide opportunities to submit yourself. Each thing is going to require a little bit of payment. I believe Actors Access requires $2 per submission if you don't get a year program. There are some that will give you free trials. And if you get on these and you submit yourself, you can get on Facebook and look up casting companies and they'll list casting. You can get on Instagram and type in casting companies and they'll have posts with an email attached. IMDb, different productions will put on Craigslist or something. You have to use discretion and do your homework research, make sure that these productions are legit and they're not scams. But that only takes just, a couple minutes of Googling and just a little bit of back work. You can find out, and using the internet is amazing. You can research and get yourself on set fast. As far as what's a difficult genre, I believe each one is difficult for different individuals. Some may find, drama difficult. Some may find comedy difficult. I personally am not a fan of horror myself. I've done a good bit of it. I do love both drama and comedy. I'm able to adapt to more dramatic and more comedic as necessary. So I do love, like I said, doing period pieces for dramatic. And if it's more contemporary, I also love a good comedic vibe. They both have difficulties in their own right, obstacles and variables that tweak the game. And I think it's more about just being mentally prepared. So when it comes to doing drama for me, it takes some time to get into the character, to delve deep and develop who that person is. And then when it comes to comedy, knowing who your target audience is, because many different audience levels require different comedy approaches. To know who you're trying to reach out to with this specific type of comedy requires some homework, and then being able to be in that mood, that mindset and mentality to deliver those punches and to have that natural comedic timing that it requires for that specific project that you're working on. So each one has its own difficulties, but I think the difficulties are fun. They're not scary. They're enjoyable to try to, like a game, to try to accomplish and win. That's happened before when you're doing comedy and you don't understand the joke because it was written by someone who either didn't quite deliver the joke properly, maybe they're not an expert comedian or an expert comedic writer, or it was something that you just personally didn't get. Finding your own personal comedy element within that joke, I think, is one way to go for it. If there's an extended joke and you see, okay, I can relate to this part, or finding that connectivity, it takes a lot of work. It feels like you won't be able to find it, but treating it like it's a job, like it's your homework, and finding that comedic element, there'll be a payoff. A lot of actors that come out to LA, they get discouraged and nothing happens. They don't take off and they end up leaving. That's actually the bulk of actors. More actors become discouraged and quit than actors that stay or actors that find achievement. And I think a big part of that is, number one, a lot of people are wowed and enamored by the fame and the prestige, the red carpets and the winning Oscars, because they watch the movies and they see the people and they think, I can do that. But then when it comes down to brass tacks, they realize that they really didn't want to do what it actually takes to make it happen. I do coaching. I coach some actors back on the East Coast, and I realized that some really want to be actors and some really just want to be famous. So they want to be TikTokers. They want to just win an Oscar. They just want to have followers on Instagram. They don't really want to be an actor. They just want to be famous. And those are two separate things. And I think to want to be an actor takes a lot more effort, a lot more persistence. And if somebody just wants to be famous, that also takes effort and persistence in a whole different level and direction, and that should be their focus. Another one is the work is intimidating. Maybe their constitution is a little weak and somebody gets to them and devastates their drive. And that also takes effort, to develop that hard shell of, yes, people are going to attack what I do. They're going to attack how I look. They're going to attack how I sound, what I say, what I wear, what I think. Everything about me could happen. Not necessarily will happen, but we have to develop. I have that thick layer of skin that nobody can penetrate because I know who I am and I will succeed. And to have that deep inner strength is necessary to continue doing acting. A lot of people don't have that and they quit. So it can be built, it can be developed inside. And I think for all humans to develop that within them will get them further than they ever thought they could go in any field. Rising the ranks of starting for free and then working your way slowly up your pay grade, I believe comes with professionalism and time. The more you become in demand, the more you have to keep reanalyzing and recalibrating yourself, saying that, yes, I've reached this level now. I've plateaued, just like in physical fitness. I've plateaued. I have to raise it up a little bit so I can request more. I can ask for more pay. I can, I'm delivering this. And I think once somebody is starting to see the consistency of this level and everything is, the pay's coming in the same, then yeah, kick it up a notch and keep moving up. I have a lot of favorite projects. There's so many good ones, and they just keep coming. It depends on the environment, the character I get to play. There really is a lot of great ones. I have a hard time distinguishing which ones are my favorite because everyone I think of fondly. Whether it was the Christmas Diamond that we just did that came out this past Christmas, I enjoy the festivities of the season. Or an independent feature called Hands about Israel Hands, who was Blackbeard's assistant. We were filming on a pirate ship doing sword fighting, or Wild West ones where we're horseback riding, or big like abduction where, I'm working with huge celebrities, or Feast of the Seven Fishes where there's a bunch of, big A-listers that I've got to watch in movies all growing up, and I get to perform with them and tell them, I remember when you were doing this. There's so many reasons. I mentioned the author the biopic of the author. It was called Undaunted, where I get to play the author. That was a favorite one because I got to live his life with him right there beside me, witnessing it happen again. Into the Wild Frontier, crazy jumping into the ice cold river. Hate it at the moment. Look back on it fondly because it was something that pulled me out of my element. And being pulled out of my element is one thing that's amazing. Like Scars, being pulled out of my element to something new that is going to reach a target audience. There's so many great elements in all of these projects. Even the commercials, traveling to go do a fun commercial for a few minutes, meeting some amazing people. I see the positive aspects in each production. Rarely is there a bad production. There's so many great things that can be pulled out of each production that each one I look at, I'm like, oh yeah, that was my favorite. Oh no, that was my favorite. Nope, that was my favorite. So it's like that. It really is. I was talking about that yesterday to some crew asked me about how I could memorize, because in this film we're doing right now, it's for Lifetime. Everyone knows that I had the most lines in the movie, the biggest bulk of paragraph where I just had to blah, 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 and I had to say it fast. It really is a muscle. I didn't believe it when I first heard that. They say, the memory is a muscle you develop. I'm like, yeah, the memory is a muscle. But it really is. When I first started, I couldn't memorize one sentence, the cat walked outside. Action. The cat, what was it? He walked outside. Yes, the cat walked outside. It was hard. But then lines and lines and lines got better and better and better. And then if I'm doing it a lot consistently, I can have 3 pages and go 1, 2, 3. I can look up and say all 3 pages. But if I take a break and say I go without acting, I go on vacation, or I take 2 months off and don't do anything, when it comes time again, I can't. So I have to work my way back up and get the brain, re-energized and recalibrated to continue memorizing again. It's different for every production, but most productions will allow you to improvise if you follow within the text and if they like it. If it doesn't match, they'll tell you, hey, we'd like you to keep it to this, or we'd like this. But if not, you say your lines, you say how you feel, and they love it. Like last night, I'm supposed to say, I shake her hand and I say, thank you very much, I'll call you tomorrow. And I leave. Well, instead, when I went to shake her hand, I said, thank you very much. I'll never forget that time when you know what? Let me call you tomorrow. We'll talk. And they thought it was funny. They're like, I'll never forget the time. I'll never forget, and they loved that. They're like, you'll never forget what time, but they thought it was funny, and, it added extra little bit to the scene. The advice I can give for people who want to be in the industry is pay attention to what's happening behind the glitz and the glam. It's like the picture of the iceberg where all you see is the top, but you don't see everything else that's happening. Or like the person you see on the mountaintop, but you don't see behind the mountain all the struggles they had to go through, because it looks glamorous on the big screen, but it really takes a lot of grit, effort, emotions, tears, sweat, blood, muscle to really make these things actually happen. So it is going to be costly, and one would have to weigh the cost, because it's not going to be always just a smooth ride.